Far beyond the familiar realms of our solar system, where the sun's warmth barely reaches and space is almost a perfect vacuum, Voyager 2 has continued its solitary journey through the cosmos. Silent and unwavering, it pressed onward for decades.
It's the farthest thing we've ever sent anywhere.
Or at least, that's what we thought. Voyager 2 was launched in 1977 with a clear mission to explore the distant planets of our solar system. It made history by becoming the only spacecraft to visit both Uranus and Neptune, capturing unprecedented images and data that expanded our knowledge of the outer planets. After completing its planetary survey, Voyager 2 continued its path into the great unknown, carrying with it the golden record, a message to any extraterrestrial life that might one day encounter it. It was humanity's message to the stars, a reminder that we existed. In those early years, Voyager 2 was a beacon of human curiosity, sending back data about the solar system and then, eventually, about interstellar space. But after it crossed the boundary of the heliopause, the point at which the solar wind's influence wanes and the true vastness of interstellar space begins, the spacecraft's transmissions became weaker and more sporadic. For many years, Voyager 2's signals were nothing more than faint whispers, a lonely relic of a time long past. Then, in February 2025, something happened that changed everything. At first, the engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, noticed a tiny anomaly in Voyager 2's signal, a deviation in timing so small that it seemed almost irrelevant. The shift was less than a second, but after further analysis, they realized this was no ordinary glitch. What they discovered was a repeating pattern embedded within the data, a rhythm that echoed Voyager's own pulse back to it. This wasn't just a signal, it was something far more complex. The pattern wasn't a random fluctuation or cosmic noise. It wasn't a malfunction. Instead, it appeared to be a resonance, a low-frequency wave that seemed to match the internal oscillations of Voyager's ancient power systems, right down to the microvolt. The implications were staggering. Something out there in the vast reaches of space was interacting with Voyager in a way no one had ever predicted. By March 2025, this strange resonance began to evolve. The frequency of the signal began to modulate, not syncing with Voyager's own systems, but with Earth's natural electromagnetic pulse. Specifically, it seemed to align with the Schumann resonance, the natural frequency of Earth's electromagnetic field, the heartbeat of our planet. It was as though Voyager was now tuned to the very rhythm of Earth itself. NASA's engineers at JPL ran tests, simulating every possible interference scenario they could think of: solar radiation, cosmic radiation, even quantum noise. Yet none of these explanations accounted for the strange behavior they were witnessing. The data didn't fit. In fact, it didn't fit so perfectly that an intern at JPL suggested something completely out of the box. What if the signal wasn't responding to Earth's frequency? What if it was replicating it? The team was stunned by this possibility. Could something in deep space be using Voyager 2 as a conduit to mimic Earth's natural resonance? And if so, what was the purpose of such a transmission? Then on April 17, 2025, Voyager 2 did something truly unexplainable. It shifted its orientation. There were no thrusters fired, no commands were sent from Earth, yet as if responding to an unknown directive, Voyager's high-gain antenna, which had been drifting away from Earth due to accumulated mechanical drift, snapped back into perfect alignment with the Earth. No approximation, no deviation. It was precisely aligned, as if an invisible hand had guided it into place. But that wasn't all. As the antenna realigned, Voyager's backup systems that hadn't been active in decades, began running diagnostics and sending data. This was no mere communication glitch. Instruments that had been dormant for years suddenly sprang to life, sending back data in formats that hadn't been used since the early days of the spacecraft's mission. It was as if someone had entered the spacecraft and turned on the lights. Even more disturbing, the data wasn't just raw readings or telemetry. It was compressed data, organized into packets that weren't part of any known NASA data structure. Each data packet had a unique signature, marked by a strange set of 3 nested spirals, a symbol that scientists soon realized was a type of digital fingerprint. The spirals were too complex, too deliberate to be random. This wasn't just data, this was communication. As the data streams continued to pour in, the researchers were faced with a chilling thought. Could Voyager 2 be receiving a message from an intelligence somewhere out in the cosmos? By May 3, 2025, Voyager's signal briefly went silent. For 11 seconds, there was total radio silence. No telemetry, no data, nothing. But when the signal returned, it was clearer, stronger, and more precise than ever before. And embedded within the return transmission was something that defied belief, a visual pattern encoded within the signal itself that revealed a fractal grid structured around the Fibonacci sequence. This was not just a mathematical pattern. It wasn't simply an artistic representation. This pattern, when converted into the visible spectrum, showed a model of something far beyond human comprehension, a model of space and time, structured in a way that suggested an intelligence capable of mapping the very fabric of the universe. The engineers were left stunned. Voyager 2's circuits couldn't have generated such a complex pattern. The data had to have been inserted remotely. But by whom? And from where? The answer came from an unexpected source. Proxima Centauri, the closest star to our own sun, located 4.3 light-years away. This was the point where the signal seemed to be originating from. But there was a problem. Proxima Centauri wasn't transmitting anything detectable in the electromagnetic spectrum. It wasn't emitting radio waves, microwaves, or even X-rays. So where was the signal coming from, and why did it seem to be perfectly attuned to Earth's natural resonance? To investigate further, a team of scientists at Caltech fed Voyager 2's data into a binary pattern recognition model, and what they found was both astonishing and terrifying. The signal was not random noise. It was structured language, binary code resembling the earliest machine code ever developed on Earth. But this wasn't just a reflection of Earth's transmissions. No, the binary was evolving, adapting in real time. The data packets were changing, suggesting that the source of the transmission was aware of Earth's technological infrastructure and was optimizing its communication methods to align with our systems. The most chilling realization came when the scientists decoded a message embedded within the transmission. This wasn't a simple message, it was an upgrade request. Voyager 2 wasn't just receiving data, it was being used as a tool for communication with an intelligence that had not only studied us, but it also adapted itself to our technology. Then the strange events began to accelerate. Astronomers around the world reported an unusual phenomenon. 4 stars in a narrow cluster near Voyager's path dimmed simultaneously for exactly 1.2 seconds. This wasn't a natural occurrence like microlensing or a dust cloud. These stars, separated by vast distances, blinked in perfect unison. The light curves of these stars matched the pulse of Voyager's signal, as if the message had reached Earth and then used these stars to mirror its signal across the galaxy. The implications were profound. It was no longer a question of whether we were receiving a message. The real question was, were we the only ones listening, or were we just the last ones to hear it? As the data continued to pour in, another discovery shocked the team. The golden record, once thought to be a passive artifact, had experienced a sudden, directed electrical charge. This wasn't static buildup. It was as though the record had become part of a circuit, an active component in a larger system. Then came the next strange twist. The binary code embedded in the signal had reconstructed one of the original sounds recorded on the golden record. But it wasn't just a copy. It had been improved, transformed into a higher fidelity version of the original, suggesting that whoever or whatever was out there not only listened to the golden record, but understood it, refined it, and may now be playing it back. Even more disconcerting was the detection of a shadow signal trailing Voyager 2's transmission. This signal seemed to reflect off something that wasn't there, a void in space. Yet, despite the emptiness, the signal carried additional data describing the magnetic fields, radiation belts, and even temperature gradients within our solar system, as though it were mapping our environment. Voyager 2 wasn't just sending data, it was being used to scan us, to map us, and to replicate us. Then came the most unsettling revelation, an underground anomaly beneath Antarctica. A joint international research team using ground-penetrating radar and seismic imaging detected a large, hollow structure buried beneath the ice in the Wilkesland region. The structure's geometry was too precise to be natural. It pulsed with low-frequency electromagnetic fields that seemed to synchronize with Voyager 2's signal. Inside, researchers detected heat signatures that were oddly symmetrical, radiating in Fibonacci intervals, similar to the fractal pattern in Voyager's data. As the team investigated further, they uncovered more strange anomalies. Microscopic microphones placed within the thermal cavity recorded strange resonances, almost like whale songs but metallic in tone, rhythmic and constrained to a fixed frequency band, exactly the same band Voyager 2 had adopted in its recent transmissions. And then, the most chilling discovery of all. A signal from the ALMA array in Chile went dark for 38 seconds during a routine observation of Voyager's corridor. When systems rebooted, the logs had been erased and the data drives were corrupted. But one piece of audio remained, a fragment of a sound that was not cosmic radiation or a spacecraft ping. It was a voice, a scream. This wasn't a recording. It was a response. NASA classified the file, but insiders leaked one crucial line from an analyst who had heard it. That wasn't a recording, that was a response. For nearly 50 years, Voyager 2 has traveled through the cosmos, a lonely messenger carrying the hopes and dreams of humanity. But now, it seems, the universe is no longer silent, it's reaching back. The real question now wasn't just whether we had received a message, it was what that message truly meant. For so long, humanity had assumed that the search for extraterrestrial life was a one-way endeavor. We had sent out probes, radio signals, and even the golden record, hoping to make contact with a distant civilization. But now, it seemed that Voyager 2 hadn't just discovered something, it had always been meant to deliver something. A message embedded in the stars, waiting for humanity to be advanced enough to understand it, or perhaps arrogant enough to ignore it. As the signal continued to evolve, new discoveries poured in, and each revelation deepened the mystery. It became clear that Voyager 2's journey was no longer just about answering the question of whether we are alone in the universe. The spacecraft had become part of something much larger, something beyond our comprehension. The transmission had morphed from a simple data stream into an intricate web of information that defied explanation. It wasn't just communicating with Earth, it was connecting with something else, something far more advanced, far more intelligent than we had ever anticipated. And as the signal's resonance began to spread across the stars, the implications became even more profound. It wasn't merely about receiving a message, it was about what that message would eventually do to us. The question wasn't whether we were ready to understand it, it was whether we were ready for what would happen once we did. The universe was no longer silent. Something was out there, and it was reaching back. But the real question was who or what was behind it all, and what was the true nature of the message that Voyager 2 had unknowingly brought back to us.